This is Continuum Drag, a weekly podcast where we revisit sci-fi, fantasy, and just plain weird shows.
This week, Gemini Man, episodes 3 and 4.
If he could make all of you believe that he was me, why can't I make his people believe that I am him?
That's a pretty risky ploy.
Look, Leonard, somebody tried to kill me in Arizona. Then they stick this stupid carbon copy in my place. Now, I take that very personally. And I want to sit around here and let them get away with it.
Sam.
Leonard, either you authorize it or I'm going to do it on my own.
Welcome to Continuum Drag, the podcast preparing to take its 2-week vacation at the tennis ranch. I'm Luke, here with my co-host Jordan. What's real, Jordan?
That was one of my favorite things in these episodes, was Sam going off to tennis camp. It's so bizarre.
I'd never heard it referred to as a tennis ranch before.
No, and I've never seen a TV show where a character said, all right, guys, see you later. I got to go practice tennis. But there's a, we'll get into it, obviously. But there's a line earlier, too, where Abby says to him, you already go play tennis 3-4 times a week.
Yeah,
I was like, what?
They say he plays 5 days a week.
He's like,
he's a real tennis head.
When does he have time for that? He's supposed to be saving the world.
I mean, there's not that many. He has a lot of downtime.
I guess.
All right. Well, before we get started, even though we're apparently deep into the second episode, we're going to do a recasting of Gemini Man as a modern-day blockbuster film. So, Jordan, should we get into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm assuming this is a big action movie. What else is this going to be, right?
You know, we'll get to it, but my picks for the director will really depend on who we cast and the tone we're going for this movie.
Okay, so maybe you're right. Let's cast and then figure out who's directing, and then we'll kind of figure out what the movie. We'll work backwards.
We'll work backwards. Yeah. Well, once we have the cast, that's all that matters.
It's all that matters.
The money's coming in.
All right. So of course, first up, Sam Casey, our lead.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you. Do you want my first two, and then you can give me what you've got?
Let's go 1-1-2-2. You,
okay.
me, you, me.
I got you. I got you. All right. So my first pick for Sam Casey, and I'm trying to cast to the character that exists currently.
Oh, I'm doing the same thing.
All right,
yeah,
great.
Yeah.
So my picks, I think, are who could play this current dumb guy who can turn invisible role kind of well, who's, supposed to be a handsome, suave man.
Yeah.
So my first pick, Channing Tatum.
Okay. Yep. I think I went slightly more, shall we say, realistic? Maybe in terms of what this movie is going to be. My first pick is Bradley Cooper.
I mean, absolutely, because that fits my second pick then. I went with Matthew McConaughey.
You know, it's funny. I almost put him down too on my list, but I instead chose Chris Hemsworth.
This is literally, I was doing this and I was talking with Melanie about it as I was doing it, and she recommended both Hemsworth and McConaughey, but I chose McConaughey over Hemsworth.
We're somewhere in the same.
We're on the same bandwidth for
Sam. So now of all these people we have, this is big star power. We know that.
I feel I like Matthew McConaughey. I think he's too old for it.
You're probably right.
Because listen, he's taking his shirt off in this movie. He's gonna take his shirt off a lot.
Yeah.
I actually think every time he goes invisible, when he comes back to normal, he probably doesn't have a shirt on anymore.
I'm gonna let you do the final pick on this, but this is gonna dictate what this movie is gonna be. Because if you say it's gonna be Channing Tatum, that's fine, but that's the hole we're going down.
Who was your first one again?
Bradley Cooper. For me, I'm there for the ride. I'm like the viewer. I'm just excited, sitting on the edge of my seat.
It's a tough one. I like Bradley Cooper for it. I think he could be really buff. And this is no offense to Channing Tatum. Very much enjoy him and things. But I really do see this character as like dumb.
Right.
And I think someone who can play dumb well, but like
let's go with it then.
Is Channing Tatum.
So this is going to be a hot dumb movie. We got it.
That is how I see this character when I watch this show. And so for some reason, that's the way I want to go.
To be fair, I do think that's what the people making this show...
I agree as well.
Or sorry, who made the show. I said it like it's still on. I think that's what they wanted the show to be. I think he's supposed to be a hunky sort of like, can you believe he's this handsome and charming?
Yeah.
And invisible?
And he's not even meant to be that bright. Like, he's not a doctor. He's not a scientist.
No.
He's a guy who can drive a truck, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Let's move on to Dr. Abby Lawrence, the female lead.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll do both of mine
because
they share a common thread, and I'll see if you can pick up what that common thread is. My first pick, Elizabeth Moss, because she knows how to work with invisible men.
Okay. Right.
Or my second pick, Elizabeth Olsen, because I feel like that's an equivalent casting. But two Elizabeths are my choice.
That's interesting. I think maybe now in my head, they might be too old for Channing Tatum, although they're probably the same age. It's probably just a weird thing I have in my head. But my first pick was Amy Adams.
Oh, yeah.
Now, normally I'd say she's not going to do a piece of crap like this, but she was in a Superman movie.
Oh, she would do this.
She might do this.
She would do this.
And then also someone who's somehow slowly become a chameleon herself in all her roles, Charlize Theron.
Oh, yeah.
So what do you think?
You know what? I like Amy Adams because I think she brings a natural scientist to a thing. I think you
You have to put a pair of glasses on her, though, right?
I mean, yeah, obviously. Everyone's wearing a pair of glasses in this
So a
movie.
ponytail and a pair of glasses.
Yeah. I feel like that's an easy one, I think. I think she has a certain gravitas naturally. Charlize Theron obviously does as well, but I think she's too leading lady to she's going to get sidelined.
Now, I'm fine with Amy Adams, but do you think she's going to work with Channing Tatum all right? That's going to look like a will they, won't they sort of thing?
I think it's good.
Okay.
Because it's mostly won't they, because he picks up a different lady every 50 seconds.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, we got our two top cast then.
And then that brings us to our final piece of casting. Leonard Driscoll, head of Intersect. Our older mustached man. I don't know. I bid my casting based on who would look good in a mustache.
Yeah. No, I've decided both have a mustache too. And we'll go to yours in a second. But I really was thinking older statesman kind of guy, but also looks like not only can he still get it done, but probably used to get it done a lot and probably better than Sam. And now they're sort of like they've just moved their way up, but really they're the competent persons. I'll actually give him my first one.
All right.
Denzel Washington.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I was very focused on mustaches when I was picking mine.
Well, Wilford Brimley.
And being alive. I was focused on those two things. And I did have to Google to make sure this person was still alive. But my first pick was Tom Selleck.
Wow, Tom Selleck. I wouldn't have thought of that. Tom Selleck's head seems to be getting a lot bigger, huh? Like actually physically.
I don't know if I've seen him in a while, so it's hard to say.
Last time I saw him, I was like, wow, his head's really big.
I mean, good for the role.
Yeah. Okay, well, my second, I'm not against Tom Selleck. I think that's I think he plays a good guy behind a desk. And again, he would keep always talking about his days when he was a crazy guy with a flower shirt riding around.
You can imagine Tom Selleck in this show in 1970, so it feels like a natural transition.
Right. My second pick is George Clooney.
Yeah. I mean,
he might want to he has to take like a directing credit too.
I will say you certainly swung for bigger stars than I did. That's for sure.
Well, I'm not sure. I think maybe the tone, as I said, is already starting to shift. Now, I don't know if Denzel Washington or George Clooney are going to take a third billing, unless it's like a and also.
Yeah, it's a real cameo part for him. Well, we'll see what you think of this. And this was not my original pick. I ended up scratching out Don Johnson because I wasn't quite happy with that.
Yeah,
and
he's making a bit of a comeback right now too.
He's really coming back actually. But Melanie said this name, and I was just like, you know what? I would like to see this character in this movie.
I'm gonna close my eyes and picture it.
So imagine Leonard Driscoll. He's grown out a mustache. He's sitting at his table. Channing Tatum's in there being like, "Boss, I gotta turn invisible." And who you guys seeing behind the desk is Kevin Kline.
Wow, Kevin Kline. I wouldn't have thought of that.
It's a little out of left field, but something about it just really tickled me.
Yeah, I kind of like Kevin Kline.
It's an interesting. I think you get him a little mustache.
It's an interesting choice. I like it. No, I like it because I think both Denzel and Denzel, like I know him, Mr. Washington and Mr. Clooney. I think they're probably too big for this part. I know. I like that. That's interesting casting.
It caught me off guard too, and I was like, "There's something about that really feels interesting."
On a side note, do you find when we're doing this little thing when you're at home and you're trying to figure, do you find you just keep pulling up the same actors over and over?
I'm making an attempt not to do that.
I do this. I'm thinking the same thing. Now I'm like worried. I'm like, have I picked these people before? Because it feels like I have.
But I know we didn't pick The Rock, so we're safe this time.
That's right. You do like The Rock.
We do. I definitely bring up The Rock a lot. But I felt like this time I think even you did this time too. I think we had pretty new people. I don't think we've ever pulled these characters out before. And I think they were good choices, all of them.
So before we pick the director, let's do a quick rundown.
All right.
So for Sam Casey, we have
It's Channing Tatum.
Abby Lawrence is Amy Adams. Leonard Driscoll is played by
Kevin Kline.
And who's going to be directing this masterpiece?
All right. I got to tell you, I've picked two very distinctive directors.
Yeah, I did as well.
And they're really going to dictate what this movie is.
My first pick, who I think I may have picked previously, was Denny Villeneuve.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I don't think he's going to be doing this movie after we've cast
After
this.
Dune.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
he's
tough.
not doing this
It's
one.
a tough one.
So I'm going to give you my second pick,
All right.
and then give me yours. Only because I watched a movie of his this week, and I think maybe this could be a fun, but still kind of grounded movie, stylized. Edgar Wright.
Edgar Wright. You know what? Not a bad pick, actually. I think you can envision how he handles the invisibility in that element.
That's
of
what
it.
I was thinking.
And it is a fun romp.
But it has to be a real fun movie. Yeah, I don't think that, you know what I mean? There's not going to be a lot of Invisible Man accidentally killing people with his powers or anything.
No. So, all right, I'll give you my first one. And it's different from Edgar, but I think in some ways similar in terms of like it will give you an idea of a visual tone. He's mostly known as a showrunner, but he started directing recently. I went with Noah Hawley, who did the Fargo TV series and the Legion TV series, and he just did Lucy in the Sky as his first feature. He feels like he brings both a groundedness but also like a really weird elevation to his stuff. Like he doesn't mind having really weird elements to it, but it would be, I think, similar to Edgar Wright.
He's an interesting pick.
And my next pick is going to change the game entirely. But I won't lie. With this cast, I would watch this movie for sure. I said David Lynch.
Oh, please. Let's go with David Lynch. Why not? Why not?
I mean, you said David Lynch. Here's a movie about a man who turns invisible, not by choice, but if he's not wearing this watch.
Yeah.
And he,
No, we have to. We have to do that. This is a David Lynch
I don't know
joint.
what he does, but I love the idea of this cast with him. He's just like, you give him this cast and you're like, talk to you in 3 months.
What it is they started filming the movie. It's not going well. They fired the director. They're like, we need some reshoots. And somehow David Lynch's name comes up and he says, yeah, I'll do it.
He just
and
rolls in.
He just rolls in and they're like, what has happened? And this suddenly becomes a very different movie.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the movie is, but I do feel like he takes the source material and he just spins it off in a direction so insane.
I think we guarantee would get some sort of weird invisible world that we see through his eyes or something like that.
Yeah. One can only imagine.
Well, anyways, I think we have a great movie here. So if anyone wants to invest in this,
send us your money. Send us your money.
We have the rights to Gemini Man.
As far as you know.
We're gonna have to call it like the real Gemini Man or something because of Ang Lee.
Oh yeah, like the real Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
And that's what in all the interviews be like, because of Ang Lee. We'll just say
just
really
because of Ang Lee. That's funny that neither of us picked AngLee. Wouldn't that have been weird? We would pick him to also make this. He's
With
the only
Will
one.
Smith.
He's the only one who can do Gemini Man.
We just start saying it like that's what that movie is. We made it. All right, you ready to get into episode 3?
I got my tea. I'm ready to go.
Here's the IMDb summary for episode 3. Sam Casey. A man is surgically altered to look like Sam, and when the real Sam goes on vacation, they try to have him killed. That edited summary was courtesy of RES0411 at yahoo.com.
All right. Yeah, good for that person.
It was a lot longer, but I thought the first two sentences really summed
That's all
it
you
up
need.
nicely.
But say the title of it again, because shouldn't it be Sam Casey? Sam Casey.
Oh, is
You
that
know?
not what I said?
Well, I don't know.
You didn't like my line reading?
No.
It starts off at the Fountain of Life Health Spa,
Yeah.
which later in the episode, Abby will refer to as a fancy fat farm. That was very rude.
Have you ever gone to a health spa?
I've been to a spa.
Have you?
Like, I've had a massage.
But it's not always a spa, though, just because you get a
But
massage.
I think I've been to a spa-style spot where I had a massage before.
Was it called the Fountain of Life Health Spa?
No, it's called Fancy Fat Farm.
That is mean. That is mean to say. And she hasn't shown any sort of like spiteful vindictiveness or like nastiness at all. Then suddenly she throws that comment out.
It really was. I was just like, some writer here just thought they had a hilarious joke that they shoved into Abby's mouth. The head of this spa is a doctor, I guess, or the boss of it anyway. It was unclear. I never really caught her name.
I thought, okay, this is going to be ruining things a little bit. I didn't think she... No, you're right. She must be work there. I thought like that's just where they had their secret lair, but they had offices and stuff.
Well, this is my question here. It's like, she's developed this plan to A, steal the secrets of Intersect, and B, kill Leonard Driscoll. Unclear as to why she wants Leonard Driscoll dead. That's never been made clear.
And can I just say, we'll get to it in a minute, but not only does she want him dead, she's taken the time, seemingly her or an assistant or someone, to make a full life-size
Cardboard
cutout of Leonard to have in the office. Now that's some hate.
It really was, and it reminded me of the last episode where they're like, the guy wanted to kill Leonard as well, but then no one ever explained exactly why or really made any sense of
Yeah,
it.
you're right. No one's trying to kill Sam. They're all trying to kill Leonard.
But it was unclear why. And I was also very confused. Like, why is the owner of this health spa a supervillain who wants like it was never clear what her association with this was or why she wanted the secrets or any of that stuff.
I like thinking that she doesn't actually work there. She's just renting out office space as a villain. They just don't have enough money yet because they haven't done enough scores. So they're just like, oh, we'll just sublet this place. Yeah.
Did you think she looked like anyone specifically? I did.
Yeah. Who did she look like?
As a leading question.
Yeah. Yeah. Who did she? I don't think I thought anything.
When I saw her, I was like, oh, it's Amy Poehler.
Okay, I could see that.
I just was like,
okay.
Yeah, this is Amy.
Doing some sort of character.
Just doing a character.
Yeah.
Health spa supervillain.
I have to say though, that's a point though for them. Have you ever seen a villain whose secret lair is in a health spa?
Listen, this was definitely fresh territory. There's no doubt about it. Jordan, how would you best explain her plan to steal these secrets and kill Leonard?
Well, there's two major things I think we need to know. One, throwing stars are the most lethal weapon.
Poison throwing stars
are the most lethal weapon. So they're going to be part of it. But their plan is to take another gentleman, by the
name of Rick.
By Rick, who's a English, and they specifically has a Cockney accent, sort of in this show. But anyways, and they are going to give him the old face off, and he's going to have plastic surgery to look like Sam to infiltrate, intersect. But really beyond that, they don't really have a plan. Like, there's no plan B. There's no like preparation other than they spent all their time and money on to change the face. After that, they're sort of like, it's a little bit
nebulous.
loose.
They've got some plan, but it's still a little loose. If you were going to take a person, put a new face on them to impersonate someone else, would you pick a person whose natural accent is utterly different than the person
I know.
you impersonate?
It's like, I know why they did it, because you want to have the viewer know the difference when there's, the doubles and what they're going to sound like and stuff. But yes, it makes no sense. And also,
this just really complicates the plot.
I mean, my assumption is that their body types match. So, they only have to do the
best choice.
Yeah, it was the best choice. But yes, that's what you learn, is that's the plan. So this episode, you're going to have two Sams. You're going to have evil Sam and good Sam, and one's infiltrating, and you're going to get a lot of like, wasn't he just here? Oh, I thought I already talked to him. You're going to get a lot of that,
for the actual making of the show, do you think they just took the actor aside and said, which accents can you do?
No, I think they wrote it, and then they said, you can do that, right? And he went, of course I can. And they're like, Governor, a cup of tea. And they're like, okay, close enough. Let's go with it.
Here's the other character trait I liked about Rick is has an addiction to chewing gum and enjoys too much sugar in his coffee.
I have to say though, they've given, and I know why all these are little things they're seeding for later on, so you could tell the difference in these two people and blah blah blah. But they've given this guy Rick. We know more about him now than we do the actual Sam.
100%,
right?
I agree.
Yeah, we know he's really into his wife or girlfriend, whoever she is.
Whoever that masseuse he keeps making out with.
They just make out in public constantly. He loves gum, loves sugar coffee.
He's from England.
He's from England. He's kind of got an attitude about stuff. Like, we learn lots about him. Sam, he's just like, he's a good old boy.
Loves tennis.
Yeah.
Well, here's what else we know about this plan. Sam's going on vacation for 2 weeks, so they're just going to swap Rick in when he leaves, which is fine. That's a reasonable plan. They know, but don't understand why Sam, Abby, and Leonard have matching watches.
Yeah.
They're like, we've noticed they have the same watch. We don't know why, but they all wear it, so we're going to make sure you have that watch so you fit in. And we've turned that watch into a camera, which I'm like, solid plan. Mm-hmm. I mean, a bit of a gap in the knowledge there.
Well, this is what's weird about this, though. They've been tracking Intersect enough that they know Sam's schedule, so they know he's going to take vacation, as you said. So, yeah, great time to replace him. But isn't it weird that they're replacing the guy that just happens to be invisible? Because I thought in my head they knew he was invisible. That's why they want to take him out.
No, but it's like nobody knows.
No,
Not even people
know.
at Intersect. People at Intersect don't even know.
Yeah, isn't that weird? Yeah, you're right. No one knows except for Abby and Leonard. Leonard's so going to get fired because of this.
I think this is like a big part of and it's what I've kind of accepted is that like literally only 3 people in the world know this is happening. Because I think we see even in this episode, a security guard will walk in and he has no idea that anyone can turn. Like, I just think that's the case. Is nobody knows. As we mentioned, he's going to use poison throwing stars to assassinate Leonard. And he's also given a pack of mints that is actually a knockout gas bomb.
It's a very
James Bond.
Yeah. But what I like about the throwing stars is there's no reason given why that's
Has to be throwing stars.
why it has to be throwing stars.
In
It's not like
1976.
they don't say like, oh, because it's made out of a metal that will get you through the metal detector. They don't
He's
say
a martial arts master.
Yeah, nothing. It just for some reason he has throwing stars, and it's just such an odd. Like I kind of loved it because it was so silly.
It was very
but
silly.
it just is such a. This episode more than any is kind of a mess of just fun ideas, but that don't really coalesce in anything.
And I mean, I did like because they make a big stink about it, like they're poison. And then when they show how he's going to sneak them in, he just like tapes them directly to his bare leg.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you've just killed yourself. Anyway, we jump back to Intersect now, and where Sam's packing up to leave for the tennis ranch.
Yeah, and as we said earlier, he plays tennis 4 to 5 times a week already.
We see his very messy office,
Yeah.
and he's lost his wallet and hasn't seen it in 4 to 5 days.
Yeah, and Abby's sort of criticizing him because she's like, "What about like your
Your
pass
security
ticket?"
pass.
And he's like, "Oh yeah, I've lost that." And then she's like, "Well, how did you get it?" And he's like, "I'm invisible." And she's like, "That's so irresponsible."
He just breaks in every single
He just
day.
breaks in every day to the office.
Fortunately for him, a security guard has found it on the front lawn, and when he comes to drop it off, Sam's invisible, but like looking through all his items because Abby's fixing his watch or something. And when she opens the door, the security guard's like baffled by all the. He doesn't stop moving items. The security guard's just standing in the doorway watching him, and Abby's just like, "Oh, this I'm just doing an experiment on telekinesis."
I know, it's the worst lie ever.
I was just like, yeah, that's less disturbing.
But I think the implication though is everyone may not know that he's invisible, but they know that they do weird and
stuff.
unusual tests and stuff.
Did you also like this other small B plot they drop here that has very little relevance to the show? That Sam has lost a filling, and he's not, and his dentist calls and he doesn't want to talk to him. But for the rest of the episode, because this man who's impersonating him loves sugar, Sam's constantly eating sugar and constantly like faking like he has a toothache. To know, it doesn't pay off.
I know. There's at least 3 or 4 scenes where you have to mention that he has a sore tooth, and I thought it was going to be a thing where like.
I thought that was going to be his tell.
Yeah, I did too, but no, it's not.
It was the funniest. It was like, I lost a filling, so now if I eat anything sweet, I got to act like it hurts. Nobody notices, though.
This is something that we've seen a lot in, not necessarily just shows that, like we're going to say, this is not a great show, but usually not very good shows, is that there seems to be a recurring theme of odd throwaway lines of dialogue that seem like they're maybe developing a character or seem like they're progressing a plot or doing something, but really they're not. And it's over and over you see in these shows where people just like say like oh, like they get off the phone like, yes, I'll buy that trampoline. Anyway, back to the case, like what is happening?
Certainly, I feel like these older shows definitely are like that. There's just weird nuances dropped in that you expect to be, because there's called attention to. You're like, okay, this is going to pay off later. It's remarkable, particularly on this show, I think, how frequently they do not do anything with them. Anyway, Sam, he takes off. He goes to Arizona to this tennis ranch, and he cannot believe his luck. The tennis pro who's going to teach him, well, she's a hot lady.
Oh, but you know what I like though? They have this scene where he's very excited because he sees his tennis coach as this hot lady, and she sort of gives him a lesson.
She's demonstrating.
Yeah, he thinks it's a little bit condescending, so he pretends to be like bad, and then he shows how good he is, and she's like, "You're actually really good," and he's like, "Yeah, of course." And she makes a comment. She goes, when she first shows up, and he's like, "Wowie zowie," and she goes, "Who are you expecting, Pancho Gonzalez?" And I don't know if you know who Pancho Gonzalez is. And what was funny to me is, I haven't heard the name Pancho Gonzalez in, I don't know, 20 years. He was a tennis player in the 1950s. And so he's before the open era, if you know anything about tennis. And it's, at the time, that would have been a dated reference. Like, the reference in the 70s to this player from almost 30 years previously is hilarious. And now the reference is, like, 70 years
impossible.
old. It's that's what's so funny. Like, it would be like me making a joke to you about like the late 1960s. Like, it's just like, what? Like, how old are your references?
So few people are already going to get
Yeah.
it. They do this in the next episode too. They reference a swimmer. They're like, she's as good as this swimmer. I'm like, I don't know who that is.
I know.
I don't know who a swimmer from 1970 was.
Yeah.
Anyway, did you like also when he goes wowie zowie, they do a gratuitous butt shot of her?
Yes.
The camera like pans out, it's like,
Yeah.
check out that butt, and then pans back
Yeah,
up.
because you want to know that they want to, as the viewer, know that you also find her attractive.
That's true. And also, do you like when Sam shows her how good he is? He does that. He finally does a serve, and she's like blown away. I don't watch tennis, But his form looked super sloppy, right?
Yeah, he's not bad. He clearly can play tennis, but he does not look like someone who plays religiously.
Who's
5 days
wowing a
week.
pro?
Yeah, no way. But the whole point of this is this conversation turns so fast. She comes.
She's so impressed.
She comes, says Pancho Gonzalez. He goes, "Watch me serve." Then she goes, "You're amazing. Why don't you come to my place for cocktails at 5:30?
Yeah, come to my room.
And this happens in like 30 seconds.
I know.
And I was just like, man, the 70s.
And then hard cut. They're making out in her room.
Yeah.
She pulls out a little tiny needle.
Didn't it look the way it was shot?
Like a
didn't it look
thumbtack?
like it looked like a thumbtack, but it looked like she was pulling it out of his hair.
I thought that's what was happening at first too. But what she's doing is she I guess it's a sleeping, like there's poison on it. She jams in the back of his neck. He passes out. She calls to her henchman, Elf. Elf's some big guy.
Yeah, he's a real big lug.
He comes out, they bundle him up, and they drive him off to an abandoned mine where they tuck him in the abandoned mine, light a stick of dynamite, and walk away. And they're like, well, that'll take care of him.
This is another, like, what I would call, like, Silver Age sort of way of dispose of your hero. We saw it in the other episode where he gets put on the conveyor belt to get crushed. This is now he's thrown in the mine, and, like, how's he going to get out? And it's like, guys, I just shoot him. Instead of draw him, just shoot him. Do anything along the way.
It's so funny. I'm just like, why didn't, like, it's as if they don't want to get their hands dirty. It's just, I'm like, you've had him unconscious for hours. You should have killed him.
What's the difference between shooting someone in the head and driving them several miles, putting them in a mine, and then blowing them up? You're still killing the person.
But because he's an invisible man, he tries to get out. They shoot at him, so he just goes invisible and walks out. The whole mine explodes. They assume he's dead.
I don't know if you caught it, but after they blow up the mine and they think they killed him, she mentions, and it is now the second time in the episode that she mentions that she's sad she had to kill him because he was a real good kisser.
I know. I did notice how she's like, what a good kisser.
And it was just like, well, is that so the viewers like
You
to
got to know.
You have to know.
You've got to know what a good kisser this
but it
guy
was just
is.
they're like that was her character thing, is that she seduces men, she pinpricks them, and then she comments constantly about how good.
Only the good ones.
Only the good ones, I guess. Yeah.
That's something we know about Sam. Another character trait.
Yeah, that's right. He can drive a truck.
Yes.
He's invisible.
Yes.
He can go invisible. Or he is invisible, I guess. He can go shark fishing. Mm-hmm. He can fly a helicopter.
Mm-hmm. Scuba dive.
He can scuba dive.
Terrible teeth. Awful dent. Like, you just don't see the dent. His teeth are
yeah,
just falling
his
out.
teeth are bad. A messy office.
See, we know so much about him.
Yeah, we do actually know a lot about him, yeah.
He's really fleshed out as a character.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's keep going. So this is the opportunity for Rick to start impersonating Sam, and he shows up at Intersect, and he pops in, and they're like, "Oh, aren't you on vacation?" And he's like, "Oh, there's a heat wave in Arizona. I called it off." And Leonard's glad he's back because Leonard turns to him and says, "Well, this is good because Abby and my stabilizer watches, they seem to be out of sync. What does your watch say?" And he has to think fast, and he like makes up some quip about says, "I'm doing fine."
Yeah. He's had to really quickly, we've jumped over a scene where he has to change his accent to try to sound like a sort of Midwestern American accent, which is only for one scene, and then it doesn't really come up again. He does it fine for the rest of the episode.
Yeah, I mean, his Cockney accent has to be hidden away, but it never, it doesn't come up. His tells are never told to anyone.
So there's no point of any of them.
Yeah. I mean, he very easily gets an intersect. But this watch thing where they're like, he has to, think fast because he doesn't know what the watches do, and immediately comes up the second he gets there. And, he gets away with it because a phone call rings and it kind of catches him off guard. But Leonard off guard, so Leonard changes the topic. But let me tell you what I thought the show was going to be. And I was so sad that it didn't go this direction. I was really looking forward to a show where a man trying to impersonate Sam showed up not knowing he could turn invisible. And then he was going to show up and he's going to get into it. Sam, Leonard and Abby were going to come we've got to do this crazy mission where you got to go into this thing and you got to get this and basically drop him off. And he's going to be like, well, this is impossible. Just not knowing that the key to it was invisibility. I wanted to show an episode where this guy was given a mission missing a crucial piece of information about how Sam pulls these missions off, and this man was going to have to execute a mission.
Well, that would have been a better episode, because this episode feels a little bit like they didn't want to do all the things you are kind of hoping for in an episode where there's doubles. It really comes down to the very end of the episode, but there's just
really
a lot of
wait for it, yeah.
they really. Anyways, but I think that would have been a fun episode.
Yeah, I just thought there was I thought going in, this was the opportunity I was going to be given, because I was like, there's something very entertaining about watching a person who's missing one key piece of information having to execute a scenario.
But let's get back to the plan. So he's infiltrated now. He's talked his way through a couple things, and the plan is when everyone's not around.
Leonard leaves the office. He starts taking photos.
He takes photos and stuff. But like, how long do they think this is going to go on for, though? Because he doesn't know anything about Sam. He doesn't know anything really about how they work, other than that they knew he was gone for vacation so they could slot him in. But it's just like, I don't know what the end game was, other than it was just like a quick go in and get photos and stuff. But if that's the case, you gave some plastic surgery for that? You could have faked to be
a janitor.
You'd exactly being a janitor going and do all that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like for what they're getting, they put a lot of investment in the front end.
Well, even when this in Leonard's office, he takes photos and they like show you a close up of the top secret document he's taking close pictures of, and I paused it, and it's a high-low gain switch. It just seems to be a device that helps you like deal with the gain in audio, whether it's the gain's too low or too high. And it's just like, this is not of any value at all.
Yeah. Well, doesn't he come back at one point? They're like, we need more than this.
This thing, I think what we see is he like is always passing the film off so they can do it. But very quickly, they get into another scene, which I was very excited for, but they also give up on so quickly. He's poking around an office, looking at more stuff, and Abby and Leonard bust in, and they corner him, and they want to confront him about how much he's using invisibility. Like, he's like, you're overusing it. And yeah. I thought this was going to be a general intervention that Sam needed because of how much he uses it. But they're actually, I came to learn, referring to the fact he escaped a mine using invisibility. But I would have loved a scene where he's getting reprimanded for like Sam's reckless behavior. I thought that's where this was going to go as well.
Right.
There's all these moments where I thought that I was going to see a guy have to live Sam's life and how terrible it was.
That would have been funny, actually. The whole thing from his perspective is just he's like, who's this jerk I have to pretend I am?
He's just
but
so
also,
mad at me.
Why was she reprimanding him for like, he used it for what, 30 seconds?
Yeah.
Like, who cares?
He's
not on a
all
mission.
the time. That's why I thought it was going to be a general reprimand for misuse of the... Anyway, but it doesn't turn out to be that. But while they're starting to reprimand him, Leonard gets another phone call, and it's Sam calling from the escapee.
So he's like, and he's in the room with Rick, fake Sam, and he's like, what? But you? Me? Who? Where?
But Leonard doesn't question. He doesn't even like bring it up. He's just like, well, why don't you disappear? And Sam's like, okay. And he checks his watch. He's like, okay, well, this is fake Sam. Like, they solve this mystery, I would say, in under 15 minutes.
Well, that's what was weird about this, because I'm not complaining that when a show goes in a different direction than what you expect as a viewer, but this does it in a very unresolved way for every scene, because again, they set up something and then went, nah, because you're right, like this, we're probably like, what, 20 minutes into the show, maybe, and it's like, well, you guys, you have the rest of the episode, like over half the episode left, and it's like, what's it going to be?
What are we going to do?
And what it's going to be is a lot of like running back and forth sort of thing.
But yeah, like they catch him. There's a fun scene where he's like throwing stars at Leonard, and the actor who plays Leonard does a good job diving for cover. I was like, oh, he's a pretty good.
So they find out it's the fake Sam. They're like, you're fake, and he's like, no, I'm not, and he throws throwing stars.
Equipment's exploding when throwing stars hit them.
His big plan was throwing stars. They don't do anything because they're throwing stars, and then They get
guards jump on him.
Yeah, and that's it. And they catch him. And so the next scene is then them introducing Sam to him.
Sam returns to intersect. He's furious at being impersonated.
Would you be furious if you were getting impersonated?
I don't know. He was so angry, and I was just like, I mean, it's weird, but I don't think I'd be that like. He was so insulted, and his plan. And Sam immediately is just like, all right, well, I want to reverse impersonate him. Yeah. I'm gonna be him. That'll show him.
Yeah.
And my favorite here's a great line here, because this is what, like, he's just concocting this plan off the top of his head. He's like, I'm gonna go in there. I'm gonna fucking impersonate him. We'll see how he likes it. I'm gonna get to the bottom of this. And he turns to Leonard, and he's like so angry, and he points at Leonard. He's like, you authorize my plan, or I will do it anyway. And Leonard shrugs.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I don't care.
Which we haven't been keeping score, but this is at least the second or third time where Sam has said, I want to do something, and Leonard goes, okay. My theory is Leonard's not actually his boss.
It's possible. Like, Leonard, every time he's so heated about it, and Leonard's reaction is like, okay, you don't work here. I don't care.
Yeah. It's that actually they still have Sam marked as dead after the original accident, so he's just showing up to work and they just haven't had the heart to break it to him.
You.
Yeah.
Their only lead as to where they can find these guys, because the Rick won't talk, is they found a sugar packet from Marv's Marvelous Burgers in his pocket.
This is such bad writing. This is like if you're reading like a bad detective novel, the one clue that's left, of course, is the thing that gets you going. Like, it's just, Yeah. They found a sugar pack, so they go to that place, and of course, that's the meeting place. I was just like, this is so dumb.
This is where Rick passes the film off to his contact, and we get to watch. It's very funny. They cut to it, and Sam's just finished putting 6 packets of sugar in, so he looks authentic into his coffee. And then as I pulled that, I'm like, there are 5 cups of coffee here. Why has he been drinking so much coffee?
I know he's clearly been there a long time, but also, so Sam's plan was,
Just sit there.
I'm gonna
all
go
day.
there and sit there all day, hoping someone just shows up and talks to me and tells me the plan. It's like, wouldn't that have been great if the rest of the episode he just sat there and the episode went on, he just no one ever came by?
No, and I mean, the guy finally shows up, and they figured out that the guy's watch is a camera, so they know he's been taking photos, and that's why they need to track them down and see what kind of photos they took. And the guy sits down, and he's like, "Hey, Rick, what kind of photos you got for me today?" And he's just like, "I don't have any photos." He's like, "What? You don't have any? You didn't take any film?" And I was just like, wouldn't you guys have just brought just have a sheet of film with no real stuff on? Like,
well, it's because this is one of Sam's plans. So he just went all bullheaded into it. Yeah, and the guy's like, "Why are you meeting me?" And he's like, "Oh, I got something.
I got something big, but I got to give it right to the boss."
And then they have like okay, fine, we'll bring you there. And then he goes, and then I think it's here where they go, "Oh, by the way, how come you aren't speaking your Cockney accent?" And he's like, "Oh, here's a clue. I can do that."
That's
Cockney
not.
accent.
But that's what's funny here too is they basically go back to the spa, and Sam's just talking like himself, and this guy's driving. He's like, "Okay, go meet us in the boss's office," which obviously doesn't know where that is. And he's like, "Also, you're back home. You can talk in your normal voice." And Sam's like, "Uh-oh.
Oh, that's
my
right.
normal
Yeah,
voice."
yeah.
And I was just like, here's another opportunity for a lot of fun because no one would ever tell you what your normal accent is. I would have loved to see Sam trying out accents on people, trying to figure out what the correct accent was. But what ends up happening is after
his
this guy drops
girlfriend,
on, he bumps into his girlfriend. She's like, "Where's my little Cockney boy?" And he's like, "I got this."
Yeah.
Anyway, he happens to see the Elf the Goon, and the tennis pro. So he kind of follows them toward the boss's office in the Hell Spa.
When he's with the girlfriend and she mentions to him that he's Cockney, blah, blah, blah. She wants to keep kissing him, but he wants to keep going on the mission. So he uses his invisibility to get away, which is the second time in the show he's used his power just to get away from a woman.
Did you like how he distracted her so he could go invisible?
What did he do?
She's standing in front of him, and he's just like, "Is that a really big spider behind you?"
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
She turns around, he goes invisible, and he runs away. There's a weird sequence here. I guess he sees Elf carrying a box at some point, and he's like, "I wonder if that box has..." Like, I had to really piece it together, but I guess he thinks there's film in the box. He follows Elf. Elf goes into a steam room in the spa, and when he comes out, he doesn't have the box. So, using invisibility, he steals Elf's keys, and then he goes into the steam room, but there's like a hidden safe he can't find in the steam room. And then a bunch of women walk into the steam room and start screaming for him to get out of the steam room. Because he didn't use invisibility when they showed up. Like, he was visible. They chase him out. He turns invisible to hide from them. And then some employee of the spa comes out, and the women are like, "There was a man in the steam room." She's like, "Shut up, you're all lying. Get back in there."
If you're an evil villain and your cover is this health spa,
why hide your safe in a working steam room?
Yeah.
It didn't make it. I mean, and also, it's going to ruin everything in that safe.
Yeah, it was such an odd thing. And also, there's
the
no
way this
reason
sequence
for it.
was done was very awkwardly done. Like, this whole section was really weird. Because after this, he just goes into the office and meets with the boss. And he's just like, he basically does his plan where he's just like, "I won't tell you what I've got until you give me money."
Yeah, $100,000, yes.
And I'm sure you have it in your safe in the steam room. And she's just like, "When you got me there, I guess I'll go check out this, get some money from you from the safe."
But this does start the several scenes in a row, and we go through them. But Sam leaves, someone sees Sam, and then he gets away, and then Rick shows up. They're like, "Hey, there you are." And he's like, "What are you talking about? It's the first time I've seen you." And you see that over and over and over, where one person's talking to one of them, they leave, and the other one shows up. They talk to them, and then they leave.
It's because over the course of his spa adventures, while he's there walking around, like, doing stuff, we keep cutting back to intersect where they're interrogating Rick, but he doesn't talk, so nothing happens in these interrogation scenes until finally, right at the end of it, he's just like, "Can I have one of my mints?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, sorry, we took those away from you." He throws it on the ground. They all pass out because it's knockout gas. He hails a cab, and he shows back up at the spa. And everyone Rick bumps into at the spa is just like, "Hey, didn't you just walk by me?" And he's just like, nah, that was he doesn't pick, like, everyone.
It takes like 14 times for him to pick up on it.
His girlfriend's just like, "Didn't we just make out?" He's like, "No, I just got back." And she's like, "Are you sure?" And he's like, "Yeah, what are you, dumb?" And I just got back. He doesn't pick up on the idea And I was just like,
but you guys know.
You know Sam's back. You must have at least some inkling that he may have done this.
Well, they want these balls in the air still, and it's like, but none of this makes sense. This is, of all the episodes, one of the weakest acts they have, where it's just like there's this fun idea, but they don't want to do it, so you just have this like messy what's happening.
Exactly. And like at some point, like Rick is talking to the guard outside the boss's office where Sam's inside, and he's like, uh-oh, I hear myself outside, or I hear this Rick guy outside. So Sam just invisibles out and like goes into the steam room himself and like scares an old lady because he like has floating keys and she thinks it's a ghost.
Yeah.
What a great scene. And like he's basically going in there to find the secret safe and do this. And Rick like finally finds his boss. They finally piece together the idea that Sam is in the spa. And she's just like, all right, we got to find him before we get caught. And I'm just like, what do you mean before you get caught? I was like, granted, Sam absolutely should have called someone the second he got to the spa. But everyone at Intersect has woken up. They've just called the cab company that picked him up and said, where'd you take him? They're like, oh, a spa? Okay. Literally, as they're saying, like, we got to find him before we get caught, cop cars are just pulling up. They're arresting everyone at this point. Everyone's getting arrested. And we finally get, like, I guess what was the ultimate purpose of this episode is a scene where Sam versus Sam happens.
Yeah. This is what you've been hoping for the whole episode, and they've saved it to, I put it, it's at the 45 minute and 12 second mark.
Yeah, 3 minutes left in the episode.
3 minutes left in the episode. The whole thing we've been waiting for is, like, I'm Sam. No, I'm Sam. And fighting. That's what you get. And it's basically the two of them saying that in front of Leonard.
What I did like, though, is because Rick is trying to track down Sam, he goes to the steam room. We get this confrontation. On his way, though, Rick's like, we got to find him. He stops by his locker and grabs some more throwing stars. And then they're facing off in this steam room. And I was just like, oh, this age-old rivalry, throwing star versus invisibility.
Yeah, it was so weird. But it really doesn't amount to much. They kind of tussle, and then Leonard comes in with a gun.
Leonard walks in the guns. Who's who?
Yeah, and they both go, I'm the real one. I'm the real one.
Did you like Leonard's line?
No, what did he say?
Leonard's staring down at them. He's just like, will the real Sam Casey please stand up?
Oh, that's right.
Please stand up.
Yeah.
And he starts rapping. It was great.
And then
he actually said that. Then I was just like, this is the Eminem song.
And then Sam goes invisible, so they know who the real one
is.
Who
could it be? How could you tell these two people apart? They look identical. Oh, right. One of them turned invisible.
Yeah. And that's the thing. They had also they could have done a thing where Sam used up all his invisibility, so he can't now. Like, there's so many different.
There's no tension.
There's no tension at all through this whole episode. So at the end, then they're like, there we are. So I'm assuming now this guy's just stuck with Sam's face forever.
He goes to jail with Sam's face.
Yeah, that's it.
I know. Crazy, right? It just like stops. The episode just like, and over. Oh, God. All right. You want to get to this next one?
Yeah. Night Train to Dallas.
Yeah, here's the IMDb summary for episode 4.
Sam, the secret that may be inside that pretty little head is devastating enough to change the balance of power in the entire world. The slightest misstep now could tip our hand to the other side and put them on Amy's track. And with stakes this high, believe me, the agents they would use would be the best blood money could buy. Dr. Friedman was working for Intersect.
And you are a trusted member of Intersect.
Besides, I can always do this. And I can always do this little trick. Right, gang?
Right. And your very next appearance is at Santa Laura College. All right.
The Invisible Man's dream assignment. Bodyguard to a women's swim team. No. Seriously?
No, that is my favorite of all synopses ever.
I also read it and like, cannot wait to watch this episode.
And I'm going to tell you, if that's what you think it's going to be, it's kind of disappointing.
Oh, you know what? Huge letdown.
Yeah, because and this is not fair, but I was expecting and hoping this was going to be like an episode of Porky's.
I also was like, with that synopsis, I was like, you know what? This is going to be a bad, dumb episode, but at least it's going to be finally an invisible episode where he's like running through locker rooms.
Yeah.
It seems like the show has been begging for
That's
it.
right. This is like, oh, it's a swim team. He wants to see them naked and he knows how to be invisible. I'm like, oh, this is a plot from a movie in the late 70s, early 80s, the hijinks. It's like, but we'll say now, that's not what this is going to be.
It was just like, it sets up so much that it's going to go that direction and it's not at all. Also, did you notice the new lower quality opening title sequence?
No, I skipped over it.
It's mildly different, but it's just like much lower quality.
Really?
They changed the effects in it, and I'm just like, what is it going? Why did they switch this opening credits, and why is it worse?
Yeah, that's weird.
It was odd.
But I like the opening. We start on like the old classic cherry siren light on the top of a cop, and it reminded me of like Police Squad or Naked.
Very
Naked
much
Gun.
that with the credits rolling over.
Yeah,
it.
it was just, I was like, whoa. I wonder I can't remember when that came out, but it was a weird shot to start on. But we go to a hospital, and it's we see a man who has just died, and we know because they're trying to do surgery or whatever, and then they pull the blanket over his face. He's dead.
They write DOA.
DOA, and his name is Arthur Friedman,
Yes.
and he's a doctor, Dr. Arthur Friedman.
Yes, and we cut then to his office where some generic spies from quote unquote, this is what they keep referring to them, they're from the other side.
Yeah, they are the least interesting,
They have no
least
accents,
evocative. There's nothing interesting about these two guys. Like, it's the worst casting ever. It looks like they cast two people's dads and put them in suits. That's the spies. It just is so dumb looking.
There's no indication of who they are, what they want, nothing.
No.
It's nothing. But they're looking at the office for notes on a secret project, but this doctor never took any notes, so there's nothing to find there. But what they do say is they know Intersect are going to be after this information too. Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh,
What?
these
Okay.
like two kind of spies. Although I'm like, does Intersect like spies? But like these two spy agencies both fighting for this information from this doctor because he's had this very important research. We don't know what the research
They
is.
never tell us what
and
they're-
they never will tell us.
tell us.
It's not important, guys.
We cut then to Intersect, where Sam, Leonard, and Abby are watching a video cassette of a women's swim team.
Well, it's the best because like Leonard comes in, he's like, "Hey guys, watch this," and Sam's like, "What is it?" He's like, "Oh, don't worry, the video will answer everything." But I like it. It looks like it's supposed to be like just a amateur video of something, but there's like still edits and stuff. Like, what?
Well, it's literally a scene we'll see later.
Yeah, and it's a woman who we're gonna learn her name is Amy Nichols.
Yes.
and she's on the
Varsity swim team.
yes, they're hoping to go to the PanAm Games. She had won the
she won
silver,
silver?
in the Montreal Olympics.
Yeah, I saw that.
Anyways, she apparently used to several years ago, I think it was 3 years ago, used to be Dr. Friedman's assistant.
Yes.
And why they're showing this video, although, you know, like, there's no reason for him showing
No,
this
there's
video
no
because he could have just told Sam this
He could have
information.
said all this stuff out loud.
But it's just like they want to see this woman diving. But the reason they think she's interesting is she was the assistant, and the reason Dr. Friedman chose her specifically is she has a photographic memory, and he doesn't like taking notes, so she remembered everything for him, which is a very, very odd system.
Very tenuous.
And also the weirdest setup to a plot in an episode that why she's important is because in her head, somewhere in the recesses of her memory, she has information that might
About
be
his
important
research.
for some reason about some weird nebulous research.
Yeah. What I did like is after it's all explained that like Sam's going to go protect her and try to talk her into coming back to Intersect, where they're going to drug or hypnotize her to get the memories out.
Yeah.
Very nefarious sounding to me.
And she's not into that idea at all.
But they can't let it fall into an enemy government's hands, so
Yeah.
they have to like do this. But they tell this all to Sam, and Sam's like, interesting. I need to watch this tape again. He puts the tape in, pushes play again, and these are his exact lines when he pushes play again. He starts watching and he goes, nice. 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 He says it 3 times watching them swimming.
There's something funny about the 70s because there will be a lot of like women on swim team and stuff, and they're all normal looking people.
Nothing
But
evocative about them
yes,
at all.
that's the thing. If this was shot now, these would be supermodels playing these parts in bathing suits. But they're just like normal people. They don't even actually they don't even look like athletes.
Aren't even like they're
Revealing.
not revealing. They're
No.
just like swimwear one pieces. Like they look like something you would wear as a regular swimmer.
Yeah.
Anyway, Sam goes to the Santa Laura College to ask her to come into Intersect and, get her brain scrambled.
Yeah.
Why you don't call? I don't know. Why they need to go in person?
Yeah.
Who's to say?
But he immediately gets accosted by the local football team who are like also acting as like security for some reason.
They protect the pool.
Yeah, and they like actually physically pick him up and put him back on his bike and send him out. But I don't know if you noticed, this is probably just for me and from anyone else who's over the age of 60. One of the actors is Michael Mcmanus, who plays the character Moose, who's the big, kind of a little bit larger guy.
Right. He looks like Buscemi.
I know him from 2 things. One is an episode of MASH playing, and I knew right away who he was. In one episode, he played a character named Sergeant Ames, and it's in the Olympics episode, which I don't know if you remember, but the whole joke of that being he's this out-of-shape guy, and they have to have 2 halves have to play, and like, can you believe we got stuck with Sergeant Ames? Anyways, good episode of MASH. But he also is in Police Academy 4 as one of the new recruits, and the joke there is he's chubby. So I think he's just always cast as isn't it funny that he's kind of chubby? He really sells his like lines in this there's nothing here. He's just like
No, yeah. He's just like
a dope to get like a pie thrown in his face. That doesn't happen, but that's what he's basically there for.
Sam is forced to use his invisibility to sneak into the pool because they won't let him, but not before he does a bunch of football shenanigans as an invisible.
He deflates their ball and then kicks another one. And I'm like,
It's just
Why?
spiteful. He's just being spiteful.
Because they wouldn't let him in because he was trying to break in. But anyways,
because a creep was trying to break into the swimming pool.
yeah.
They were within their rights.
But anyways, it kills some time in the episode.
Kills some time. He gets into the pool. He dresses as the least convincing maintenance man who starts cleaning the pool as they are swimming in it.
And he starts like he actually like hits one of the women with the
He's got like a stick
skimmer.
with a skimmer on it. And he's just like, they're swimming and he's like hitting them with it. I'm like, no one believes you're a maintenance man.
Here's something else we learned about him. He loves dressing up as like blue collar workers. He's been someone working.
Oh, that's true.
He's been now a guy cleaning a pool. He's been a delivery guy, and he's also been a guy working at an airport.
He loves to impersonate a job.
Yeah.
Anyway, he finally corners Amy and's just like, hey, you want to come in, get your brain scrambled so we can get it up before the if you don't let us poke around your brain with drugs, an enemy government will, so you might as well do it for America.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, I'm going to Dallas to be in the PanAm Games, and I have a night train to catch.
Yeah, so she's not interested at all. And so you see what the conflict's now going to be. He's going to keep trying to convince her before the other guys get to her, and she has no interest in helping.
He heads to the train station. He has to sneak onto the sold-out night train to Dallas. Invisible is his way on. He's going to have to convince her by the time the train gets to Phoenix to get off. What a weird deadline. As he gets on and walks through the car, the two bad guy secret agents see him, immediately recognize Sam, and they're like, oh, hey, it's Sam Casey from Intersect. You want to kill him? Yeah, let's do that. Let's kill him.
And more interesting, I don't know if it's in this scene or it's already passed, but did you catch what Leonard called Sam? I think he's on the phone or he's complaining to Abby about that they're sending him, and he goes, ugh, we've had to send Surfboard Sam.
Oh, I did hear that. Yeah.
I was like, I'm like, that's not a
Leonard
positive
doesn't like him, right?
He doesn't
That's
like
what's
him.
happening here.
Yeah. It's not a good nickname.
Sam tracks down Amy on the bar car on the train and gets very aggressive with her. Mm-hmm. I believe at some point he says, I'll drag your waterlogged body off the train. And when she protests, he's like, shut up. I was just like, how are you convincing anyone of anything here?
But more importantly, while he's accosting her, there's a blind woman, Mrs. Price, who's on, and you know this is going to be a plot point. So, because you know right away there's something you're like, what is she?
You'd think it's going to be a plot point.
Well, it sort of is. But she's there, and she's reading Agatha Christie.
She loves Agatha Christie
I was just
novels.
like, shoot me now.
Well, you think that's an indication this is going to be a murder mystery or some sort of train?
And it's not. It's not, because you know what it is? Someone who wrote this went, hey, Agatha Christie, she wrote like
She's a thing on a train,
a train, right? Yeah, we'll do a thing on a train, just like Agatha Christie. It's like, no. It's like, I've done it. It's already written. Surfboard Sam.
It was wild. It was like the implication of like, this is going to be a mystery. It's like, but it's not.
No.
And like, she'll touch Sam's face. Like, oh, you seem like a kind man having a fight. And like, he can be invisible while he talks to her because she doesn't know the difference kind of thing. Because basically Amy's just like, I'm still not coming with you. I'm leaving. She walks off and her swim team's there. And they're like, who's that hot guy you're talking to?
Yeah, the one person on the swim team loves Sam so much. Like, her only thing she ever says, this poor actress, is like, he's so hot. I can't believe you left him. Like, I'd love to be whatever.
What do you think that actress is up to now?
Probably not much.
It's Kim Basinger.
No, it's not.
It's Kim Basinger. That actress is Kim Basinger.
It's not.
It is. That is her first TV role.
I did not recognize her at all. Wow, when I said she wasn't going to be up to much, she was up to much, much more than poor Sam Casey.
Yeah, this was her first TV role.
Wow, that's a bad role.
It is a bad role, but I was just like, I saw it in the credits and I was watching it. I was like,
I did not.
Wow.
I never would have noticed it. So we've seen her first role, and in another thing we saw Kirstie Alley's first role.
That's true. And a Quark. But yes, it's this whole setup with like the swim team and this blind lady who likes Sam. Sam sneaks back to find the women's swim team sleeping car and like a voyeur stares through the window as they get ready for bed.
Yeah.
And then once they all get into bed, he doesn't go invisible. He just walks into the room and is forcibly ejected from the cart by all the women.
Yeah.
Because why would you walk into someone unannounced? For whatever reason, Amy agrees to talk to him again. She decides on a compromise with him. And she's like, why don't you guard me from the baggage car if you insist on being here?
Yeah.
Sam goes into the baggage car. While he's talking to a dog, a bad guy's in there.
Lucky
the dog. A bad guy's in there trying to put a homing device in her bag or something.
Yeah.
And he sees Sam. He picks up a real big box.
It's a big crate.
And tiptoes up behind Sam.
Like he's Wile E. Coyote.
And he's about to smash him in the head with this box. And at the last second, Sam turns around and sees him and turns invisible.
I know.
And
I know what you're going to say.
He throws the box down. But Sam doesn't move.
And then he appears somewhere else. I'm like, but we didn't see him move.
Like, he got hit by that box.
Yeah, I know, because it was almost as if they were telling us, oh, when he's invisible, you also can't.
He's the material world cannot touch him.
Yeah, but no, it's just a bad shot. But yeah, so he gets to beat this guy up. What I like, though, is that he lets the dog out of the cage.
So he can put the guy in the kennel.
I was like, but that was a small cage. I'm assuming the scene we didn't see was Sam cutting the body up and just putting
it in the
limbs
cage. Also, now that the dog is loose from his kennel, he is now a character in the show. Yeah. Lucky the dog has now joined the television program.
Yeah, poor Abby and Leonard are always stuck at the office, but they've added a new character, and the character is a dog who, for all intents and purposes, is Lassie.
Yeah. Well, and so Sam now knows, all right, there are bad guys on the train. They're out to get her. He uses his invisibility to sneak back onto the women's sleeper car. Abby is not currently in her bunk, so he climbs inside the bunk to wait for her. And when she climbs into the bunk, he grabs her by the mouth from behind and says, "Don't scream."
Yeah.
And
she's not as scared as she should be.
And what's so funny is she's not as scared as she should be, and you think it's because she saw his face. She didn't, because she turns around, she's like, "Oh, it's you." It's just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's insane. Basically, he's just like, tells her, there are bad guys on the train. I just saw them. She's like, all right, fine. We'll get off in Phoenix.
Well, what it is, and I didn't quite catch this, Luke. Explain this to me. What he really uses to convince her is he shows her alarm clock.
Oh, yeah.
And he goes, look, here's the alarm clock. And to prove to you there's guys after you, they like monkeyed with it. But what did they do? I didn't understand what had happened to the alarm clock.
The alarm clock has another gas bomb put in it. So when it's going to go off, it's going to knock her out. I guess they're going to steal
her. It's weird because they show you the clock, but like it doesn't show you anything. I'm like, okay, fine.
I know, it's evocative of nothing.
So it's just like, oh, look, he's like, look at that. And she's like, yeah, okay. Anyways, so that convinces her.
It's just forcing this plot forward. They sneak out of the car. Amy and Sam, they go back to the bar car. Sam now spots another bad guy. And because the bad guys have the same fashion sense, Sam realizes
that's how he pieces it together. Yeah, he goes, watch out, that guy's bad. And she goes, how? And he goes, they got the same fashion sense. And I was like, but it's not even like they're both wearing like neon suits or that. I'm like, everyone's wearing suits. There's nothing. And again, they didn't take any time to make these guys look interesting in any way. It's not like they both look shady and they're wearing like dark fedoras over their face, something, and you're like, oh, they look spooky. It's like, no,
the audience can't tell who's an extra and who's the bad guy.
Yeah, and again, they're the most boring looking people. But anyways,
Sam comes up with a new plan now. The plan is, let's get off in Desert Palm, the next stop. I will punch the bad guy in the face, and we'll get back on the train.
Yeah, that is his plan.
And he's just like, well, we wait, though. How would you like an orange juice from the bar?
It was so weird. Why was it orange juice?
I don't know.
So yeah, he goes up to, I think the guy's name's Stuart.
Oh, I think he's a steward.
Oh, steward. That's how dumb I am. Anyways, they ask for 2 glasses of orange juice. They sit down, but what they don't see is the guy's also a bad guy for some reason.
The bartender's also in on it, and he's slipping a Mickey into the 2 orange juices.
So they sit down. Which makes no sense. She's just like, she said, yeah, she'll have an orange juice. Then she's like, I actually don't want it at all. And Sam's like, but I love orange juice. And he just like downs it.
I like it. She's like, I'm too nervous to drink anything. And Sam's like, you're lost. And he chugs the whole orange juice.
And he's like, all right, let's go on our way. And so they leave.
Yeah, they're like, time to do the plan in Desert Palm. We'll get off. I'll punch the bad guy in the face. We'll get back on the train. Sam passes out. The second they get off the train, he passes out.
The guy comes in and is like, hey, and he tries to fight the guy, but he
just can't stand.
So he just falls and passes. But then what it looks like is the guy rolls him onto the tracks, didn't he?
That's what it seems like. It seems like he rolls the unconscious Sam under the train onto the tracks. And then Amy meets the dog. They disappear. We don't know what happens to them. And I was so confused by this because Sam seems to be unconscious and then seems to like get up. Like there's this moment where he's like, oh, I'm a bit better. I'm getting up now. Let me turn myself invisible. And then he goes invisible, and I'm like, oh, so he's fine. He's getting back on the train now. But this is where the old blind lady comes back in, and he has woken up long enough to become invisible and then passed back out under the train tracks.
Yeah, but we don't see any of this, so it seems like a weird edit.
But she trips over his invisible body, reaches down, recognizes the feel of his face.
Yeah.
And one of the stewards on the actual train is like, hey, where's that old lady who's usually on the train? She's not here. So he comes off to try to find her. And while she's just like manhandling, I guess, Invisible Sam, she's like,
well, no, she's looking for his
check
pulse.
His pulse.
Yeah.
And while she's doing that, she accidentally turns his watch back on. So now he's visible. So the steward like comes out, finds her, is like, oh, who's this unconscious man? Let's help him onto the train.
Yeah.
And it's this whole part's insane. They like help him back on the train. The train leaves Desert Palms. He's in the bar car. She's using smelling salts on him to get him to wake up. He wakes up, looks over, sees his orange juices, and he's just like, oh no, the orange juice was poison, and that's why I passed out. Kim Basinger comes into the bar car and says, Amy's missing. And he's like, oh no. He stands up, pulls the emergency brake on the train. The train doesn't stop.
Yeah.
He jumps off the side of the moving train and is knocked unconscious in a ditch.
I know. It all happens really fast.
It happens so fast. I was like, what is this? What is happening? And he's unconscious until the morning. Hours pass, and the dog finds him in the ditch and wakes him up, and then says, the dog's basically like, starts barking at him. He's like, what is it, Lassie? Is Timmy in the well? And he just follows the dog.
Yeah, he literally, the dog starts barking, and he goes, you know where Amy is? And the dog keeps barking. He goes, let's go find her. And they run up a hill. And what I like, though, is, so you get a couple scenes. They don't really matter. He sees a farmer with a horse. He steals the horse. Then gets go a little faster. There's no reason for it.
It was crazy. He steals a man's horse.
Yeah.
He's like, time to use my invisibility to steal this man's horse. I'm like, what?
But what you realize is they've created all these obstacles of he's being knocked out for hours and hours, which he didn't have to be. So what they have to do now, because that's stupid, is they have to have the bad guys not be so far away. So, because again, they've made him be knocked out for hours, which he didn't have to. So the next time you see the bad guys, their car has broken down, and they have to have a line of like, this car's a piece of junk. He's like, well, it's the quickest I could get in the time we had. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
And it's all just so basically.
So Sam can catch up to them.
Sam can catch up to them for the least interesting end to an episode that you could have.
Well, that's it. He's riding up on his horse. He sees them in their broken down car. He's like, well, I got to save her. And he looks at his watch. He's just like, well, only got 18 seconds of invisibility left today. And I'm just like, but you slept for like 6 hours. I'm sure you're back up. But whatever. Like,
yeah.
His watch has 18 seconds. He's like, it's going to have to be enough. I'll go invisible. I'll ride over there. I'll grab her. We'll ride off. It'll be perfect. They won't know. They'll just think a horse is coming. And of course, I timed it.
Yeah, I did too.
He's invisible for easily 35 seconds.
Yeah, I agree. I know. Once I got to 30, I was like, oh, well, this is stupid now. Because I thought they'd at least like cut it in a way that it seemed like it happened really fast. But I'm like, no, you just see the horse riding over.
They go to so much trouble to be like, I only have 18 seconds. Yeah. And they're like very leisurely bring him over. Anyway, he scoops her up. They ride away. There's like a horse jeep chase. Sam flags down a cop that's driving by. And then as the Jeep pulls up, the cops arrest the bad guys.
Yeah. It was a real just, it's ended. It's over.
And then Sam calls Intersect. Like, I got her. And she agrees to come in and have you mess with her brain. And they're like, great work. But she's going to come after she finishes the PanAm games. And I'm like, do you think this was a lead up? Like this was some sort of like PanAm promotion?
Yeah, maybe.
Because they kept mentioning the PanAm games. Oh my God. It was such a bad episode.
It was my least favorite episode.
Well, you want to hear some trivia about the episode?
Oh, please.
Do you know who wrote this episode?
Kim Basinger.
Stephen E. D'Souza.
Who's that?
Better known as the writer of Die Hard, Commando, 48 Hours, Judge Dredd.
Really?
He wrote the original Die Hard.
Wow.
You could never tell from this episode.
No, I couldn't. Just like the guy who was showrunner of this wrote Star Trek 2, 3, 4, and 5.
It is very funny. I was just like, I had seen that before I watched the episode. I'm like, well, this should be interesting anyway. I was like, what is this? He must have been like asleep when he wrote it.
Or he was like 10 years old.
Maybe that's what it is. Yeah, I mean, wow. What a 2 episodes of this show.
2 episodes. Well, so let's go into it. Now, we know that we right now are at a 5. So we are on a dangerous precipice of falling over into the escape pod at any moment.
And this is something, and we'll mention it now because I think we haven't been doing it much lately because we just do it so often now. The escape pod is our way out of the show. If our overall ratings fall below a 5, we will then abandon a show. We won't finish the entire program. So we're basically at a point where, because it's right at the 5 line, it has to be very careful not to fall below 5, or we are definitely escape podding this show. Mm-hmm. So that really sets the stakes for Gemini.
The stakes are as high on this as it is on the show. So
you'll never guess which way it goes.
I'll tell you. For the first episode, Sam Casey, it was a fun, dumb episode.
I agree.
Originally, I was going to give this a 7 out of 10, which is because I think it was my favorite episode. But as we started talking about it, and the more I thought about it, I'm like, this is really dumb. I'm going to knock it down to a 6.
6, eh?
Yeah.
All right. Well, here's what I would say about it is there is fun to be had in it, but it's too few and far between. Like, I would actually just think I feel like I want to move it up to a 6, but it didn't quite get that. I think it's just a 5 for me. I think it's a straight ahead 5.
Doesn't it seem, though, that they are writing the show and they don't know, like, it's not that they don't know what's fun, but they don't ever want to spend time on that because they want to get back to the plot that seems so inconsequential anyway. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it'd be one of those things where if there was so many just fun scenes and silly things that distracted you, you wouldn't really care what the plot is anyways, but they're always like, okay, I know that was fun. Let's get back to this plot that makes no sense.
Yeah, I would say that's for sure in Sam Casey, its biggest benefit and problem was like there were many ideas that could have been fun, but they sped through them all so quickly that it was just like, there's an imposter. Oh, that's over. Now Sam's going to be an imposter. Oh, that's over. Like it just went, it was like so, like they didn't commit to one. They just kind of tried to do it all, but in the least amount of time. So it didn't really, I think that was his biggest sin. All right. What about Night Train to Dallas?
My least favorite episode. The only thing that I think could save it is that the dog becomes a character. Lucky stays on the show. I don't think it will, but I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 10. It could even go lower if I think about it too much more, but I did not enjoy watching this one.
I definitely did not enjoy this one for sure. I think I like the trucker one more, and I only gave that a 2.
Really?
And I didn't like that very much, but that was a better episode overall. There are a couple fun bits in this, like just
I think of a show that is a bit of a mess. This one does everything the show does wrong. This episode has it. Like if you were like, hey, do you want to know why this show didn't make it? Watch this episode on the train.
Yeah, this is the one that's gonna blow it all. I'm gonna give it just because I want to give that trucker one the respect it deserves. I'm gonna give this a 1.5.
Oh, brutal. Oh, so I don't know, Luke.
Well, let's fire up the computer and find out if this escape pod's firing up.
Hold on. Gotta blow the dust off it.
All right, Jordan. The numbers are in. Currently, Gemini Man is rocking a 4.65.
Oh, that's it. We're going.
So load into that escape pod, and as is tradition, one final episode climbs into the escape pod with us to give us that finale we all love.
I don't know what our last episode is, but I'm really hoping that there was some major retooling that happens between now and the last episode. We're gonna be like, who are these people? What's these characters?
Well, not to tip our hands at all, but I will give you a little bit of hope.
Yeah,
coming for you is the final episode of this series has the highest IMDb rating.
Really?
Of any of the other episodes. So there's a small chance we get a little treat at the end.
You've been a little harder on this show than I have, but I am liking it less and less every week. I think almost in terms of a cumulative suffering of watching it, it just is not getting any better. So I'm hoping that last episode really is, because these last couple episodes, man, it's getting weak.
Yeah, it's not a great show.
No, it's not.
It has been a consistent disappointment.
Yeah, but Kim Basinger, that's something.
Hey, that'll be a gif.
We should have put her in the recast.
She's back.
Yeah, she's back. She plays Driscoll.
That'd be all right, actually.
Yeah.
It's not a bad choice. All right, well, that about wraps it up for this episode of the podcast. You can email us at continuumdrag@gmail.com if you have any thoughts on Gemini Man. And in the meantime, over the course of the week, we'll be putting up a variety of little videos from these episodes. I think, we'll probably find a Kim Basinger photo or some sort of image of her in there, because it's worth seeing her in a first role. And what else was good in these episodes?
I don't know. People stealing keys and dogs barking. There's not a lot.
Well, we'll figure something out.
We'll find something.
We'll figure something out. Something to look forward to.
Yeah, I really sold it.
Anyway, listener, thank you for joining us on this journey into Gemini Man. And Jordan, see you next week.
I'll see you for the last one.
Continuum Drag is recorded in Toronto, Ontario. Theme music by James Rexedler. Produced by Jordan Delic and Luke Black. Special thanks to Aaron Yunes, Adam Wheatner, Jeff Hanley, Jane McRae, and Stephen Packard.